Night descended upon the quiet streets, disrupted only by the distant hum of a finely tuned engine. Under the dim streetlight, the sleek, metallic silhouette of a Ferrari gleamed, a rare spectacle in this working-class neighborhood. Jamal Carter, a distinguished but unassuming Homeland Security agent, turned the corner cautiously, his mind momentarily free from the weight of the world's troubles. Suddenly, the flash of red and blue lights cast an eerie, oscillating glow upon the Italian masterpiece, shattering the tranquil moment. "Pull over!" barked an authoritative voice over the patrol car's loudspeaker, breaking the nocturnal silence. Jamal's heartbeat quickened, each rhythmic thump echoing the pulsating lights. Practice and instinct took over as he gently steered the Ferrari to the curb, its powerful purr dwindling into silence. He exhaled slowly, gathering his thoughts and bracing for yet another unnecessary confrontation. Two officers approached, striding with assumed authority and a hint of suspicion etched on their faces. Jamal's professional instincts told him to remain calm, to keep his hands visible and his movements measured, yet his past experiences left him anticipating the familiar undercurrent of racial prejudice that tainted modern existence. "License and registration," demanded the taller officer, his eyes narrowing as they swept over the luxurious car and its occupant. Jamal slowly reached over to the glove compartment, retrieving the necessary documents with deliberate precision. As he handed them over, the officer's skepticism was palpable. "What's a man like you doing with a car like this?" the officer spat out, unable to suppress the ingrained bias that colored his inquiry. Jamal met his gaze, his expression unwavering, yet tired of the familiar narrative that questioned his right to exist within spaces presumed exclusive to others. "I'm heading home after a long day," he replied, his tone steady and forthright. The officer flipped through the documents, his eyes flicking up to scrutinize Jamal's features, searching for a flaw in his meticulously composed appearance. But it wasn't enough. The other officer, younger, perhaps more impressionable in his zeal, stepped forward, emboldened by the silence and imbued with a misplaced sense of purpose. "Sir, step out of the vehicle," he commanded, the words latched onto an accusatory edge that clung to the damp night air. Jamal's heart sank, the familiar weight of unreasonable suspicion resting heavily upon his shoulders. Stepping out from the confines of his car, Jamal stood tall and resolute, an island of dignity amid a rising tide of unnecessary scrutiny. The officers moved closer, their body language dripping with preconceived judgments, eager to unearth a justification for their actions. As cold as the night air felt against his skin, an even colder realization settled within him, the indifference of a system designed to oppress rather than protect. Despite his extensive credentials and the responsibilities that rested upon his capable shoulders at the Department of Homeland Security, here he was, reduced to assumptions based on the color of his skin and the car he drove. An undercurrent of tension crackled between them, an unsaid understanding that this confrontation stemmed not from genuine concern, but from a deeper unspoken unease with the very sight of him, a black man in a Ferrari. The indignation simmered silently within Jamal, his outward composure masking the thunderous protest roaring inside his chest. A flicker of something close to defiance sparked in Jamal's eyes as he held their gaze, knowing well this was but the beginning. He knew too well the steps that would follow, the procedural dance that could spiral beyond reason and justice. It was not anger that coursed through his veins, but a resolute determination to yet again prove his right to exist against the stark backdrop of societal prejudice. The officers patted him down, their actions more performative than necessary, each motion fueled by a misplaced sense of justice. Jamal remained silent, allowing their negligence to unfold fully, each moment seared into his memory, both a personal affront and a societal failure to recognize the humanity that lay beyond his skin. As one officer rounded the Ferrari, inspecting the vehicle with unfounded suspicion, Jamal stood firm, a silent testament to tenacity in the face of unwarranted adversity. He was no stranger to this, a weary traveler on a never-ending journey for equity and respect, battling silently within a hostile narrative that demanded his relentless resilience. Just then, as if cued by an unseen director, phones around the scene began to record. Neighbors looking on with a morbid curiosity mingled with a sense of impending justice. Their silent vigil marked more than an incident. It was yet another chapter in a society that had yet to reconcile with its prejudices and fear. Jamal remained composed, aware that these recordings could be the deciding factor between justice and merely another statistic for racial profiling. He wasn't just a man under scrutiny, he was now a beacon, ethereal, steadfast, standing in judgment of a system slowly unraveling against the weight of its own biases. The patrol lights still flashed ominously, casting an unsettling glow on Jamal's face as he stood beside his car. He felt the tension in the air intensify, a palpable current that threatened to suffocate reason. His identity papers, his badge, his credentials as a Homeland Security agent sat tucked away, undisclosed for now, until necessity dictated their revelation. The tall officer leaned in, eager to assert his authority. "Sir, why don't you tell us where you got the car?" His voice carried the weight of presumption, resting heavily between them. Jamal drew a deep breath, allowing composure to wash over him once more. "The car is mine, officer," he said firmly, his voice unwavering despite the provocation. "The car's yours, all right," the younger officer echoed dismissively, tapping the license against the palm of his hand as if the act could conjure hidden truths. He looked at Jamal with a smirk that belied a false sense of confidence. "Mind proving it?" The request lingered in the air, an unspoken challenge not just to the car's ownership, but to Jamal's very dignity. His mind raced through the potential outcomes, settling on the course of transparency, a decision driven by the insistent gaze of those recording the scene, and his own desire to rise above the fray. Carefully, Jamal reached into his wallet, retrieving his government-issued badge. The metal gleamed under the streetlight, an unassailable testament to his role and responsibilities, juxtaposed starkly against their baseless allegations. He extended it to the officer without hesitation, the silence around them thickening as the officer's eyes widened with dawning realization. "I'm a Homeland Security agent," Jamal stated calmly, yet his words cut through the tension like a blade, sharp and precise. The unexpected revelation hung there, transforming the officer's perception like a slow chain reaction. Gasps rippled through the small crowd, the whispering turning into an undercurrent of disbelief and burgeoning anger. For a split second, the officer's eyes faltered, confusion dancing across his face, as he glanced from the badge to Jamal's resolute expression. It was a moment of unraveling, the foundation of their assumptions crumbling beneath the weight of undeniable fact. "Yes, I see your badge," the tall officer finally murmured, the sheen of sweat now visible on his brow, an indicator of his growing discomfort. The younger officer fumbled with the papers in his hand, his bravado dissolving into uncertainty. "Well, we didn't know you," he stammered, words failing him. "No, you didn't," Jamal replied softly, with a resonance that echoed beyond mere words. It was an acknowledgement of the deeper issue, a systemic blight that demanded exposure and rectification. The atmosphere shifted, a collective realization rippling through the observers and officers alike, recognizing a collision of reality and prejudice laid bare. The neighborhood, previously quiet, now thrummed with a newfound solidarity, their defiance encapsulated by their silent recording and watchful eyes. "Sir, we apologize for the inconvenience," the tall officer offered, struggling to regain control over the crumbling situation. Jamal recognized the phrase for what it was: a Band-Aid over a festering wound, a testament to a flawed system being dragged unwillingly into accountability. Jamal merely nodded, aware of the boundaries of his contribution at that moment. The spotlight of societal scrutiny was now firmly fixed upon them, and he understood the power and responsibility it entailed. He took his documents back with practiced calmness, his fingers brushing against the symbol of his hard-fought achievements and the silent promise to safeguard against the injustices wielded against him and those like him. The tension began to ease, though the cold truth remained. Jamal knew they had seen only a glimpse of the vast complexities within this small interaction. Yet he had stood his ground, a solitary figure, demanding recognition not by volume, but by a quiet insistence on truth and integrity. As he turned back to the car, the Ferrari door closed with a resolute thud, the sound punctuating the night with renewed purpose. The patrol car's lights dimmed, allowing shadows to reclaim their dominion over the street. But the scene, captured forever through the lenses of observers, would echo beyond the constraints of fleeting moments, a digital testament to personal resilience and systemic failings. As Jamal drove away, the weight of his tenure as an agent mingled with the personal struggle to redefine the narrative imposed upon him. Redemption did not lie in singular instances, but in the collective awakening he had sparked. The road stretched before him, unbroken, much like his resolve, unwavering in the face of adversity. As Jamal guided the Ferrari through the maze of streetlights and traffic signals, his phone buzzed insistently on the passenger seat, interrupting the hum of the engine. Each vibration was a reminder of unresolved tension left behind, an echo of the confrontation that only partially dissipated with his departure. With a single glance, Jamal recognized the number. He answered, his mind momentarily shifting from the road. "Jamal Carter?" he said, keeping his tone professional despite the turmoil swirling within him. "Agent Carter," came the voice of his superior, Director Ellen Navarro, cutting through the static. There was a tautness in her voice, suggesting urgency. "We've received word from the precinct about an incident involving you and local law enforcement. Are you all right?" Jamal suppressed a sigh, a blend of exhaustion and resolve stitched into his response. "I'm fine, Director. Just another misunderstanding on the road. I've got everything under control." There was a pause, a moment heavy with unspoken understanding. The need for transparency and accountability overpowered the protocol, guiding their conversation firmly into territory governed by recent events. "I'm dispatching a team from Internal Affairs," Navarro continued, her voice steely with intent. "This doesn't just affect you, Jamal. It compromises our agency's standing. We must ensure it's handled appropriately." His finger tapped rhythmically against the steering wheel, creating an absent-minded pattern. "I appreciate that, Director. I'll cooperate with the investigation. It needs to be addressed openly." "Understood," Navarro replied, confidence seeping into her words. "And, Jamal, if there's anything I've learned, it's that these situations reveal more than they conceal. This will be resolved." As the line went dead, Jamal swallowed the brimming frustration and let his eyes settle on the road. Solidarity was a comforting yet fragile sentiment, emphasized by the director's promise and the video evidence that had, by now, likely permeated social media networks. The roar of his engine was a comforting symphony as he signaled a turn towards a lesser-known avenue, a path not just through concrete streets, but through the complex labyrinth of societal expectations and his tireless quest for justice. Within minutes, additional patrol cars descended onto the precinct. A flurry of activity unfurled as officers and agents gathered, their attention fixed on the emerging spectacle. It was an official acknowledgement, a step beyond routine into a realm where words would eventually dismantle biases and misjudgments. Jamal's arrival was met with a chorus of inquiries and directives, each more decisive than the last. Uniformed figures buzzed through the gathering, collectively animated by a shared awareness of the significance the videos had captured. Within that chaos, one thing became abundantly clear. This was not going to be quietly brushed aside. Agent Morales, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for impartiality, greeted Jamal with a firm handshake. "We're here to facilitate, Carter. Just say the word, and you'll have every protection we can muster." "Thanks, Morales," Jamal replied, his gratitude genuine beneath the practical veneer. "I'll lean on you once the inquiry starts, but first, I need to make a statement." Their gaze shifted to the impromptu press gathering stationed just outside the precinct. Reporters, camera crews, and curious onlookers mingled, armed with anticipation and inflated expectations. The demand for sound bites and clarity reverberated within the contained chaos. Jamal stepped forward, consciousness of every step against the concrete as he approached the media pool. The air was electric, filled with the promise of confrontation and the anticipation of narrative sway. With practiced control, he readied himself to confront not just the camera's lens, but the broader narrative it represented. "Agent Carter," one journalist called, jostling for position among peers, "what can you tell us about the incident tonight? Is this another example of racial profiling?" He met their probing gaze, understanding well the power and peril that lay within his words. Taking a moment, he allowed silence to wrap around them, heightening the ensuing disclosure. "Tonight was a stark reminder of our ongoing battle with prejudice," Jamal began, his voice firm yet tempered by the weight of his lived experience. "It was another confrontation that shouldn't have happened. We're initiating an official inquiry to ensure accountability and reform where necessary." The digital eyes trained on him blinked in concert, capturing the earnest confession and passing it through endless streams of commentary and analysis. "We stand at the cusp of necessary change," Jamal continued, the resolve in his tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. "This isn't an indictment of all law enforcement, but a plea for introspection. As a society, we need to redefine these interactions, make them just, equitable, and free from prejudice." Questions lingered in the air, but Jamal allowed his statement to settle, preferring resonance over verbosity. The impact was instantaneous, a ripple that promised a lasting effect, not just on those present, but echoing through community discourse and policy reform. The weight of expectation lightened slightly on his shoulders as he stepped back, assured that this was merely the beginning. The engine of change, like the Ferrari, roared within him, pushing onwards, fueled by purpose and an unwavering commitment to see justice served. The following morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds of Jamal's apartment, casting striped patterns across the floor. His phone buzzed incessantly on the table, a harbinger of the chaos and scrutiny that awaited him. The events of the previous night had spread like wildfire across social media platforms, igniting a virtual outcry that showcased both support and outrage. As Jamal scrolled through the posts and comments, he felt the dual nature of social media, an ally in illuminating injustice, yet a breeding ground for discord and division. His fingers paused over a video clip, the one recorded by an onlooker from the night before. It had already amassed thousands of views, shared rapidly among activist groups and news outlets alike. Hashtags proliferated, capturing the essence of racial profiling and demanding justice for those unfairly targeted. Jamal's thoughts were interrupted by the phone vibrating with a new notification. A message from Maya, his colleague and friend, popped up on the screen. "Jay, saw the video. Stay strong. The world is watching." Jamal sighed, appreciating Maya's succinct encouragement. The world, indeed, was watching, and that fact alone carried an immense pressure, an unwritten obligation to leverage this moment for change. His gaze shifted to the television, where news anchors dissected the incident with fervor, dissecting every frame, analyzing every gesture exchanged between him and the officers. On one channel, an impassioned guest speaker declared this is yet another clear example of systemic bias that plagues our law enforcement. Cases like Jamal Carter's should alert us to the necessity for comprehensive reform across all branches. On another station, a debate raged about the role of race in policing, with panelists clashing over solutions and accountability. The divide was stark, one side arguing for the defense of police actions, leaning heavily on the context of our protagonist vehicle, in an area that lacked Ferrari sightings, while the other side, relentless, demanded introspective change that actively addressed racial disparities in policing. Jamal knew that while his role in this narrative had positioned him as both an agent and advocate, it was the broader discourse that needed to evolve, transforming reactive anger into proactive reform. A fragmented argument echoed through the speakers, the need to recognize the dual identity of individuals like Agent Carter, reconciling their position within enforcement agencies with the racial biases they encounter. The statement struck a chord, encapsulating the complex interplay of professional and personal identities that Jamal navigated daily. It succinctly captured the heart of the issue, that discussion would not end with this incident, that the fight was not solely his to bear. The message alert flickered anew, a notification from Shayna Tinsley, a prominent civil rights activist with a following that spanned continents. Her tweet read, "Proud of @Agent Carter for standing up. The battle isn't just his, it's a collective war against injustice. Keep amplifying these stories. Jamal Carter, justice needed." The encouragement resonated deeply, offering not just solidarity but a call to action. Jamal knew that this support, stretching beyond his immediate circle, empowered him with a platform that could catalyze broader, much-needed change. With resolve sitting heavily yet reassuringly on his shoulders, Jamal set out for the precinct. The support shown online mingled with the physical presence of demonstrators nearby, their voices rising in protest. Signs waved defiantly, carrying messages against racial profiling, urging viewers to recognize and rectify ingrained biases. As he approached, individuals recognized him. Applause mingling with chants, creating an atmosphere charged with determination and expectation. Demonstrators, some faces familiar, others new, formed a protective cordon around the precinct entrance where an unsanctioned yet profound display of unity unfolded. A young boy approached hesitantly, clutching a handmade sign that simply read, "Be fair, not afraid." His eyes met Jamal's, reflecting a mixture of awe and hope. That moment, pure and unfiltered, highlighted the unspoken promise being woven through the crowd. A promise to persist in fighting for equality and fairness in every corner of governance. Inside, the precinct bustled with an urgency tempered by the consequences of inaction. Jamal settled into the sterile meeting room, where discussions would soon unfold. This was the crucible of reform, a yet uncharted path demanding transparency and constructive dialogue. The contingent from internal affairs took their places, their expressions ranging from serious to contemplative. They acknowledged Jamal with newfound respect, tempered by the serious nature of their task. "We thank you for your patience, Agent Carter," the lead investigator began, setting the tone for what promised to be a challenging yet transformative discussion. Unbeknownst to them, outside these walls, thousands stood vigilant, their collective hope poised to fuel what had begun as a small spark into an unrelenting pursuit of justice and reform. The meeting room was engulfed by a solemn air when Jamal took his seat at the wide, polished table. The internal affairs team sat opposite, their eyes scanning the array of paperwork, video equipment, and computers arranged methodically before them. A digital clock ticked softly in the background, persistently counting seconds as if managing the impatient promise of justice outside these walls. Agent Morales took the lead, her demeanor composed yet purposeful. "Thank you all for gathering," she started, her voice clear and commanding enough to anchor the room's attention. "Today, we are initiating an internal investigation regarding the events involving Agent Carter and local law enforcement. Our goal is to establish facts and implement necessary reform." Jamal observed the room, eyes settling on each face, fellow agents, civilian review board members, and precinct officials. Their expressions ranged from guarded skepticism to genuine determination, reflecting the diverse perspectives accompanying them. "First, let's address the immediate concern regarding procedural conduct during the events recorded yesterday," Morales continued, tapping a key to project the video onto the screen behind her. The video, though silent, was powerful, its imagery unmistakable. The vivid contrast between the assertive officers and Jamal's poised yet defensive stance highlighted the entrenched biases at play during the encounter. Jamal watched intently, acknowledging the gravity of having his professional and personal integrity thread through digital narratives dissected for public consumption. This moving tapestry pulsated with tension, illustrating the intricate dynamic he had negotiated in real time. "Agent Carter," Morales signaled, "can you provide your account of the incident?" Clearing his throat, Jamal's voice pierced the hushed room. "I was on my way home when stopped for no justified reason. Despite having all documentation, emphasis was laid on invalidating my right to be there rather than upholding any actual law. This wasn't an isolated experience. It revealed a systemic oversight needing our immediate attention." A murmur of agreement passed through the civilian members seated nearby, showing alignment, however tentative, between departmental protocol and lived experience. One row back, Captain Lorenzo from the precinct leaned forward, eyebrows furrowed. "This highlights a recurring issue in our operational training. There's no denying scrutiny must become standard procedure in situations like these." His admission rode a wave of acknowledgement from those present, a significant step from silent complicity to voiced responsibility. "We must refine our approach, ensuring fairness informs every community interaction, especially racial, ethnic ones. It isn't just protocol correction, it's cultural rehabilitation," Morales stressed, captured attention converging on her palpable resolve. Outside, the demonstrators chanted slogans hinting at harmony and change. Their volume seeped into the precinct, a constant reminder of society's watchful eye pressing against the veneer of these proceedings. Each slogan echoed with insistence, words transforming into determined footsteps challenging the rigid complacency that characterized many institutions. Further training and awareness workshops must become integral within departmental operations, mindful that justice retraces its values through our actions, Jamal added, seamlessly complementing Morales's advocacy. He was unapologetic. His articulation reflected the precision and responsibility ingrained deeply within him. "I agree wholeheartedly," echoed an unlikely voice. Detective Rosa, seated at the table's farthest point. Previously a quiet participant, her stance softened into an authoritative ally. "Officers need expanded diversity training, understanding cultural contexts, influencing community relationships, and decision-making processes." Morales nodded, her expression reinforced with encouragement. Her ear tuned to the chorus outside, where peaceful demonstrators continued championing reform. "We propose launching a comprehensive review across precincts to recycle best practices and instate corrective frameworks prioritizing ethics and equitable interaction." A wave of collective agreement swept the room, cementing the panel's resolve. Jamal felt a faint twist of optimism thread through him, cushioned between commitments and narratives, personal, shared. It wasn't a full victory, but an ascent toward meaningful, collaborative change. As discussions continued, the echoes beyond walls merged with voices inside, external advocates reinforcing internal allies. Conscious of miles left to traverse upon branching paths, this gathering marked a significant initiation, a reconciliatory sign among thinly spread hope. In conclusion, Morales voiced, rising alongside hopes gathered within the room, "Let this investigation be more than reconciliation. May it instill transparency, integrity, and justice while serving as catalyst for deeper, necessary reforms." Jamal nodded silently, heart pulsing in synchronization with rhythms guided by resilience. Transformation wove itself into these proceedings, signaling an encouraging shift from complacent acceptance toward dynamic collective action. Injustice witnessed, now served. Resolution, beginning anew, tethered to fusion of past struggles and unfolding tomorrows. The room buzzed with a subdued tension as the officers involved in the previous night's encounter took their seats at the table. Their presence was not merely procedural, it was pivotal to the integrity of the investigation. Eyes widened, necks craned slightly, each participant acutely aware that the discussion held the promise of truth or further obfuscation. Officer Dennis, the taller one from last night's duo, looked less assured without the patrol car lights accompanying his authority, his jaw clenched tightly, betraying a mixture of apprehension and staunch defensiveness. Beside him, Officer Randall, the junior partner, fidgeted slightly, his youthful eagerness replaced by an ever-growing apprehension. "Thank you for joining us," Morales addressed them, her gaze steady, conveying the gravity of the situation. "We aim to compile a comprehensive understanding of your decisions and motivations during last night's incident." Dennis nodded curtly, his fingers interlocking with tense discipline. "We believed we were acting within our rights. Suspecting a vehicle of this nature in that area warranted further investigation." His words echoed with rehearsed conviction, yet lacked the resilience required to withstand the scrutiny they were about to endure. "Could you elaborate on what constituted this suspicion?" Morales pressed, challenging Dennis's justification. Her tone held no malice, only the insistence of truth. Dennis shifted uncomfortably. "It's not standard to see a Ferrari in that part of town. Our training prioritizes examining discrepancy. What kind of discrepancies justify prolonged detainment beyond verifying identity credentials?" Morales's question hit like a well-aimed arrow, splintering the wall built on assumption rather than substance. Randall, silent until now, swallowed visibly, struggling to align himself with Dennis's seasoned presence. The driver's demeanor didn't align with innocence. Randall interjected finally, layering his response with hesitance. "Innocence?" Jamal's voice broke through, quiet, yet resonant. The word hung heavy in the room, distilling latent absurdity with its presence. His patience rapped taut, mirroring the frustration others felt with unsubstantiated bias, which lingered professionally, personally, eternally. Dennis and Randall exchanged surreptitious glances, momentary fatalism replacing their prior camaraderie, knowing they stood accountable against systemic specters looming behind each action, each word spoken. Whether seeing a car out of place or relying on subjective character assessment, Morales interjected decisively, it cannot underscore racial profiling disguised under protocol. "Officers, you're familiar with diversity guidelines. Where did bias come into picture? How did perceived discrepancy turn prevailing within assessment?" The clock continued its relentless countdown, each second stripping layers back to reveal raw action, void of contextual camouflage. The question appeared to sink into Dennis, his earlier assured manner wilting slightly, but restraint persisted. "We admit an error in prolonged detention, loss of better judgment." There was a hint of reluctant compromise in his tone, catching on edge, caught red-handedly alongside echoes of personal truths wasted away. Randall nodded in agreement, unable or unwilling to contribute further. His eyes darted about the room, searching for refuge within unanswerable confines encircling his vision. Morales's eyes softened fractionally, acknowledging their reluctant admission. "It's about understanding that momentary biases harm communal trust, not only toward law, but internal solidarity too." A murmur of assenting vibes wafted through gathering agents, community members present, tangible reminder emphasizing continued vigilance. "We implement changes for sustained transparency, forthrightness thereafter," Morales concluded firmly, underscoring resolve, furnishing authority beyond doubts. Only through admitting fallibility can learning foster justice, reflecting equitable policing. The officers nodded, slowly digesting the gravity of their situation, a murmur of collective recognition tinged with repentance. It was a start, a subtle yet significant shift in acknowledgement where justice sought anew, fragments converging into integrative tapestry of change. As deliberations wrapped up, the room gradually settled into subdued chatter, rippling with silent cogitation and hope blooming amidst shadows unearthing anew around defensive facades. Walking out of the gathering, Jamal's thoughts merged seamlessly with the chorus delineating narratives both past and unfolding. By holding even these responsible accountable, sewing fabric where laws upheld, their power abused, and rectifying bias settled deeply within humanity's roots. Untangled doggedly, courage manifest, timing gradually alongside. Exiting the precinct, Jamal was enveloped by the bright afternoon sun, a stark contrast to the subdued, shadowy confines of the conference room. The crowd of demonstrators outside hadn't dwindled. If anything, their resolve seemed only to strengthen, a living testament to the unity challenging the fabric of injustice. As Jamal made his way through the crowd, receiving nods of respect and pats on the back, a young woman approached him, her face a blend of familiarity and memory. "Agent Carter," she called, her voice carrying a mixture of relief and urgency that caught his attention immediately. He turned, recognizing her from somewhere deep in his past, but struggling to place it. "You may not remember me, but I'm Layla. We went to school together back in the day," she began, her eyes searching his for recognition. Suddenly, memories flooded him, hallways filled with laughter, shared lessons, and the silent formation of unspoken alliances against the prejudices already present even then. "I remember," Jamal said, realization melting into a warm smile marred by the circumstances. "It's been a long time." Layla nodded, her expression darkening as they stood amidst the chants for justice. "You spoke at the assembly senior year. Remember? About challenges we'd face because of our skin," she chuckled, a soft sound bereft of humor. "I guess you were right." Jamal sighed, a weight settling into his chest, a confluence of nostalgia and stark reality colliding. "I'd hoped it wouldn't come to this, even back then," he confessed, enveloped by their shared understanding of a world shadowed by inequality. Layla's eyes brightened suddenly with a fierce resolve. "They need voices like yours. Leaders willing to fight, expose these injustices. You were a beacon then, and you are now," she insisted, determination underscored by an impassioned plea. "Sometimes I wonder if things change slowly, or if at all," Jamal murmured, his gaze drifting momentarily to the ground. Around them, the rhythmic chants of protest wrapped them in conviction, galvanizing their heartfelt discourse. "This," Layla gestured towards the assembled masses and raised voices, the energy vibrating through them. "This is change in motion, Jamal, and you're a crucial part of it." Jamal met her gaze, drawing strength from her words. Here, surrounded by passionate advocates for justice, he felt the raw potency of collective action, the kind he'd known as a distant ideal in school halls, now tangible in this moment. She stood by him, a reminder of youthful dreams now manifested into vibrant reality. "All right, let's continue," he said, his voice threaded with newfound resilience and commitment to their cause. "But I won't do it alone." Layla smiled, warmth threaded with understanding, as both reflected in their similar journeys. "We're with you. This isn't just your fight." A short distance away, a camera crew captured their exchange. The story unfolding extended beyond personal boundaries. It was a tapestry woven from distinct yet unified threads of hope, resolve, and activism. The footage, brimming with sincerity, would project their shared mission onto broader canvases, igniting sparks in hearts still warming to the call. "Come find me, okay?" Layla's voice rose over the crowd's chant as they prepared to part. Her offer was both invitation and steadfast support, immortalized within the history they were penning together. Jamal nodded, watching her merge back into the crowd along with countless faces that would herald change and unity. Each step he took resonated with the chorus, firming determination within him, their voices a cascading promise, propelling him forward. Back at home, he gazed out the window, city sounds melding with memories and aspirations, glimpses of past encounters woven intricately with determination to seize moments like these. A deep sigh escaped, mingling with resolute intention resting within breaths tempered by a desire for justice, a profound acknowledgement of his indelible role in this unfolding narrative. As the sun set, golden hues painting hopeful streaks across the horizon, its brilliance mirrored an awakening world inching toward equality and reform. Through memory and conception, Jamal's heart beat with conviction, a symphony of voices refusing silence, insistently crafting justice with challenging perseverance amid adversity's shadows cast long across distance, realized today The clamor of the media storm descended like a whirlwind as Jamal's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, reflecting the expanding magnitude of his story. News channels ran looping segments of the encounter, the dramatic video footage becoming a focal point of national discourse. Headlines screamed of racial profiling and systemic bias, their narratives urging reflection and reform. Jamal sat at his kitchen table, the glow from the television flickering over the room like an electronic campfire, drawing him into the realm of public debate unfolding beyond his walls. Commentators and analysts filled the screen, each weaving their perspectives into the tapestry of a societal reckoning. "There's no question," a pundit declared emphatically on one channel, his voice tinged with righteous urgency, "that cases like Jamal Carter's highlight the chronic flaws infecting our police institutions. This isn't just about one incident, it's symptomatic of a deeper malaise demanding immediate action." The screen transitioned to another panel discussion, where voices clashed in a battle of rhetoric. "But," interjected a voice opposed to sweeping generalizations, "we can't paint all officers with the same brush, based on isolated errors. It's a question of training and policy refinement rather than outright condemnation." Jamal watched as the debate unfolded, each voice a piece of the larger conversation. He understood the layers of complexity these discussions harbored. What rattled in his mind wasn't merely the legality of procedure, but an introspective search for humanity within these exchanges, a humanity often bypassed in favor of resolution focused solely on systemic diagnostics. His reverie was broken by a call. Maya, his steadfast colleague, appeared on the screen, her expression a curious blend of amusement and determination. "You've become quite the unwilling celebrity, Jamal." Jamal chuckled softly, acknowledging the unexpected spotlight. "Not the kind of fame I envisioned," he replied, a hint of irony threading his words. "But it needs addressing. Every facet of it." She nodded, understanding the burden now tethering to his professional and personal narrative. "The agency's discussion about that initiative to reevaluate how racial sensitivity and interaction protocols are incorporated, it's being fast-tracked. All thanks to you." He felt a twinge of satisfaction, a ripple of progress stemming from his ordeal. Yet it was tempered by the enduring struggle ahead. "It's not just me, Maya. Everyone pushing for change, they're the real catalysts," he insisted, his tone earnest. Outside his window, the city pulsed with life. Citizens moving along the paths etched into concrete like lines in an epic poem. He thought of those demonstrating just yesterday, their voices unyielding in the pleasantries overshadowed by substantial silence. A testament to presence signaling change. Maya read his contemplation like a book open to the wind. "I get it, Jamal. This movement, it's real and bigger than any one of us." Their conversation was punctuated by a segment of breaking news, drawing Jamal's attention back to the glowing screen. The anchor, grave and articulate, presented updates about gatherings multiplying nationwide, protests, peaceful but potent, flickering across cities in solidarity. They showed rallies rooted not merely in his story but countless others, nestled within a collective history now standing taller against repression's shadow. "Communities are galvanizing," the anchor noted, the screen brightened momentarily by an image of thousands gathered on Capitol steps. "What began locally has now burgeoned into a national demand for accountability and reform." Recognition bloomed within Jamal's chest, a comprehension of how his narrative had entwined with others, fortifying a shared journey towards enlightenment. He remembered Layla's voice among the thrumming echoes, the persistent courage threading through time's fabric like a resounding cadence urging shared resilience. "And how does it feel to know you've affected so much?" Maya inquired, her eyes keenly fixed upon his own, seeking a glimpse into the heart led by enduring memory and recent impact. "It's a responsibility," Jamal admitted, considering how duty encircled him both protectively and expectantly, "but I've come to see it as an opportunity for growth, for everyone involved." Maya smiled, resolved in her support. "We'll keep pushing, Jamal. one step at a time. As their call concluded, Jamal returned to the present moment where multitudes sought clarity within chaos. The dialogue continued like a flowing river, compelling, relentless, nurturing potential with every turn. Jamal leaned back, suffused by the collective voices percolating from screens and the open terrace, his mind steady on crafting tomorrow amid echoes of today's conscientious calling. Here, within the vortex of transformation, he stood, a beacon, igniting intentional light against darkness's shadow-strained, ready anew to illumine not just paths known, but the obscured distances whispering resolutely for enduring justice. The walls of the Homeland Security Office hummed with a sense of urgency, the energy of swift determination melding with the exhaust from coffee and keyboards. Colleagues maneuvered through the myriad tasks that defined their mantra, yet today felt different. Jamal noticed the subtle shift, a shared realization that their efforts bore the weight of a story that had spiraled beyond individual agency into national conscience. As Jamal approached his desk, murmurs rose among his peers, camaraderie seasoned by acts of unyielding support. They reacted positively not only to shared purpose, but to Jamal's quiet fortitude in navigating the storm outside. Maya approached him with a stack of files under her arm and a reassuring smile on her lips. "You're practically a legend around here, Jamal. The office buzz is your weight." He returned the smile, allowing himself a brief respite from the seriousness encroaching upon them. "If by legend you mean becoming an involuntary symbol, I suppose so. We're proud of you, Jamal," she said earnestly, her eyes reflecting the collective sentiment woven through words spoken and gestures noted. "It's not just about protocol implementation anymore. It's about redefining identity within enforcement, and you're leading a crucial part of that change." Others approached, offering encouragement and expressing gratitude for his openness and bravery to confront the storm that had been brewing silently around them. Words of comfort and solidarity drifted through the air, infusing the space with a promise of collective action. Among the colleagues, Richard Gunn, a senior agent notorious for his otherwise gruff demeanor, lingered near Jamal's desk. His expression softened as he met Jamal's gaze. "Back in my day, we used to think battles were best fought quietly, internally. It takes guts to do what you're doing. Standing tall in the eye of the storm," he admitted, the testament veiling respect and introspection. Jamal nodded, appreciation thread through his acknowledgement. "These aren't battles we can fight silently, Richard. Not anymore." The nods from those assembled reaffirmed his conviction. This shared journey wasn't rooted solely in individual triumph. It was a collaborative struggle, manifesting reform, demanding transparency, enveloped by accountability. Suddenly, an alert chimed through the room, the catalyst to renewed focus. Agents sprang into action, deliberate and engaged, mobilized by an imperative that expanded beyond routine operations. Screens flickered, documents shuffled, fabricating a symphony of cooperation, echoing the urgency with which their mission now resonated. In the midst of the organized chaos, a meeting had been convened, a briefing dedicated to debriefing recent developments and trailblazing future strategies rooted in fairness and equity. Jamal emerged as a vital presence in this new directive, the symbolic cornerstone amid dialogues and frameworks designed to bridge chasms woven too deeply through enforcement practices. As the room filled, remarks segued into structured conversation, an amalgam of perspectives converging for the sake of nuanced comprehension. New initiatives unveiled amidst queries, comments, interspersed with reminders of the reform path envisioned in response to Jamal's experiences and those echoing his own. A senior department official leaned forward, pinning the gathering with a measure of fixed resolve. "We're implementing significant changes today," he announced. Regular cross-training between divisions, focusing on cultural sensitivity and equity. "This is just the beginning." Applause rippled across the room, a testament to collaborative intent, an acknowledgement of shared responsibility hustling amid enforced transformation. There lingered an understanding that these changes would ripple outward, grounding themselves in actions taken here under the guidance of Jamal's unexpected narrative legacy. As the meeting concluded, agents dispersed with newfound purpose, entwined now with the ideals suffusing Jamal's journey. They committed to this vision, each movement, each policy revision or discussion, contributing to education, enrichment, responsiveness. It was the beginning not just of new practices, but of a metamorphosis, finally within evolution's grasp. Jamal returned to his desk, anticipation and fulfillment dancing within the understanding that each decision made now propelled the broader cause forward. Each action linked him to the network of allies surrounding him both here and beyond these walls. They had forged a path less trodden, cementing growth from adversity with emphatises illuminating justice's radiant yet challenging trajectory. The office settled into its rhythm, the perpetual motion rhythm aligning with a mission more defined, enhanced by collective voices resonating among diverse paths. Woven purposefully together, it was a hum echoing a promise, a certainty enveloped within inevitable change, not just within their circle but outward across all who believed, collectively refusing retreat from their hard-earned, deserved emergence. The corridors of the precinct whispered secrets as Jamal navigated them, a lingering reminder that within these walls, the foundations of justice and prejudice intertwined. Every step resonated with the persistent echoes of past encounters and ongoing revelations, the recollection underscoring both the promise of reform and the road extending towards it. Inside the precinct, hushed conversations unraveled like clandestine threads winding through the fabric of institutional routine. The atmosphere was charged with tension, bordering on the precipice of revelation. It was as if the walls themselves bore witness to the narrative spun within, and were finally compelled to let them unfold. Jamal passed by groups of officers deep in discussion, their murmurs barely contained. The tenor of their voices hinted at unease, wrapped in the necessity for introspection. He sensed it, a shift in the paradigm, like a minor tectonic adjustment preceding seismic change. He caught snippets of dialogue while walking past, a mention of accountability, fragmented phrases punctuated by the lighting of a metaphoric candle, challenging shadowed practices long left unchecked. Every whisper carried potential, the chance to reshape mindset, to transplant new ideologies where obsolete ones had taken root. In the break room, within the confines of routine gatherings, the conversation held a new, almost electric quality. Officers had traded their habitual banter for discussions heightened with awareness. Old jokes about racial informants and stereotypes had given way to tones of conscientious dialogue, evidence of the ripple effect set into motion by the night's unfolding drama. Detective Rosa was among them, her voice a firm presence as she addressed her colleagues, leading them in conversation. "No blaming others this time," she stated, challenging those present with the integrity of her gaze. "This is about us, improving how we engage with communities we're meant to protect." Another officer chimed in tentatively, uncertainty coloring his words. "But how do we integrate it into training, make it effective?" "It begins by listening," Rosa affirmed, a forceful pointer underscoring her dedication to realigning priorities in practice. Each nod signaled acknowledgement of this path leading toward change, each hesitant utterance a step in merging understanding with proactive resolve. Jamal lingered in the doorway, observing the earnestness spreading among them. Detective Rosa's engagement with their peers was nothing short of transformative. He nodded slightly to himself, acknowledging the complexity of relationships, an ecosystem guided by principles of respect, understanding, and active, transparent commitments. Further down the hall, he overheard officers Dennis and Randall conversing quietly. They stood side by side, faces marked with an amalgamation of worry and contemplation, not just from repercussions outlaid within the inquiry, but enlightenments now gnawing at their perceptions. "I should have known better," Dennis admitted, his admission faint yet weighted. drifting through the air with the incontrovertible ring of personal truth. Never thought about how the little things compound, never questioned it. Randall, younger yet newly introspective, nodded slowly, digesting lessons learned through discomfort. Never thought something routine could become something else entirely. The silence, our silence, was a part of it too. Jamal listened, absorbing their reflections as they rippled through the precinct's atmosphere, like streams merging into collective flows of understanding. The hushed admissions deposited hope within him, tethered to epiphany made manifest through words embedding themselves into the precinct's essence, reshaping dynamics from within. Before continuing down the corridor, he turned back, catching their attention. "Change isn't easy," Jamal said, a quiet encouragement tailored by wisdom grown within challenging soil. "But noticing where things fracture is a start. Each of us is part of it, changing how we move forward, how we think." They nodded back, something illuminating their eyes, a refined composure softening earlier resistance. It was neither absolution nor exoneration, but the first step toward reconciling broken pieces within a system intent on mending itself. As Jamal retraced his footsteps through the precinct's inner workings, hope gathered like storm-born electricity, a fusion of purpose and renewal bolstered by experiences shared among them. Confidence murmur settled harmoniously among present certainties, a promise born of belief rationalized through ferocity, and resonance interwoven now with solidifying belief. The precinct, the agents and the echoes resting among interactions now anticipated, no longer inhibited change. Each whispered revelation piecing together the dynamic kaleidoscope that marked this gradual, indispensable pursuit. Vision, reconciling experience amid individual choices, transforming into wider, collective refrains. Outside the precinct, the streets were alive with the thrumming pulse of unity. A tapestry of voices united with a single intent surrounded Jamal, stretching through the avenues. The crowd had grown since he first arrived, swelled by individuals drawn by a shared purpose, a vivid mosaic of humanity demanding change. Local business owners, teachers, parents, and students alike mingled among them, their presence a testament to the burgeoning force of community resilience, forged bonds that spanned cultural, racial, and generational divides. Here, amid their assembled gathering, ripples of conversation saturated the air, as if the city itself breathed with newfound consciousness. Jamal couldn't help but smile as he navigated through the throng. Each face carried a story, reflecting their commitment to dismantling the oppressive structures that had ruled over their experiences for far too long. This was more than an assembly. It was a heartbeat personified, a crescendo of silent narratives merged into one powerful voice. He spotted a group of young activists at the periphery, raising makeshift signs that bore the eloquence of necessity. "Justice for all," one sign proclaimed in bold letters, echoing like an anthem against negligence. Another declared, "Silence equals complicity," a succinct reminder of their collective responsibility to act and to speak. In the midst of it all, Jamal caught sight of Reverend Thomas, an older man whose esteemed presence amongst the community symbolized wisdom and fortitude. The Reverend's voice, a melodic baritone tempered by years of advocacy, rose above the crowd, addressing them with a clarity and zeal that resonated powerfully. "Today we converge not merely for accountability, but for profound change," Reverend Thomas called out, making direct eye contact with Jamal. "We're here to reshape narratives and ensure the dignity of every person acknowledged, respected, and uplifted." Applause erupted, carried through the collective assembly with reaffirmed conviction. Jamal nodded back, feeling a kinship with this community that had stood by his side, weaving his personal adversity into their broader fight against systemic injustice. Mothers held their children's hands, explaining the significance of the gathering, embedding early lessons steeped with empathy and equity. Young men and women, previously unsure of their impact, were now galvanized by direct action, igniting conversations they once believed themselves too small to influence. A mother leaned down toward her young son, whose wide eyes absorbed the scene with curiosity. "Remember," she instructed gently, her soft voice steady, "we're stronger together. This is what community looks like. Standing up when things aren't right." Jamal was swept up in the sincerity of the moment, feeling as though he was simultaneously at the center and yet just one among the many faces propelled by hope. He understood the power in their union, in the implicit promise between them to remain vigilant and unwavering, even as challenges grew considerable and paths forward remained fraught with complexity. Maya appeared at his side, her presence a constant source of steadfast encouragement. "They're really with you, Jamal. Every step of the way. Count on them." He nodded, deeply grateful for the unwavering support. "This isn't just about one person or one incident. This movement, it's part of our collective healing, our progress." Nearby, Layla reappeared, the shared recognition of their earlier past now woven into the intricate tapestry binding these newfound alliances. "I knew you could inspire this, Jamal," she said, gesturing to those gathered, their convictions reflected vibrantly with sunlit assurance. "You've always been persistent about where things needed changing." He chuckled, scratching the back of his neck nonchalantly. "Persistence is one word for it," he replied lightly, the corners of his lips curling upward. "Sometimes I call it stubbornness, and usually for good reason." But Layla shook her head, her expression painted with earnestness. "What you're doing, pushing through limitations to catalyze change in all of us, that takes courage." The banner of clouds overhead painted soft shadows across their landscape, each outline a testament whispering dreams within reality. Jamal stood at the intersection of yesterday's echoes and tomorrow's promises, enveloped by voices unified through conscious action and acknowledgement. This community, with its composite voices harmonized by experiences shared, surged like an anthem, wrapped in perseverance, a resurgence across obstacles now recognized for the ravines they had unraveled together. Jamal's heart swelled with determination as he surveyed this mighty orchestra of change, a community reborn within solidarity's sight, marked indelibly by justice's light, breaking forth invisibly within an awakened dawn. The sunlight danced across the faces of the crowd, highlighting the determined expressions as it painted lines of unity and resolve upon the diverse group gathered. In the midst of this scene, Jamal spotted an unexpected figure, a man whose suit and polished shoes stood in stark contrast to the grassroots essence surrounding him. His presence was both unfamiliar and compelling, drawing attention like an anomaly in the fabric of their shared pursuit. Jamal recognized him immediately. Andrew Colton, a high-profile attorney known for his skillful navigation through the treacherous waters of high-stakes civil rights cases. Colton's reputation was one of fierce advocacy and unyielding dedication to justice, a modern titan whose name was synonymous with change. Curiosity piqued, Jamal navigated through the crowd toward Colton, whose tall figure was locked in conversation with Reverend Thomas. Their mutual gestures spoke of a synergy forming, an alliance poised to bolster the initiative foregrounded by the events of Jamal's recent encounter. As Jamal approached, Colton turned, his gaze finding Jamal's, cool, assessing, yet charged with a certain respect. "Agent Carter," Colton greeted, his voice a rich baritone that carried effortlessly over the noise of the crowd. "It's an honor to meet you, given the circumstances." Jamal extended his hand in greeting, feeling the weight of Colton's reputation playing against the moment's gravity. "Thank you, Mr. Colton." "Please, call me Andrew," the attorney replied with a warm, if momentary smile that settled quickly back into a facade of businesslike intent. "I've been following your story. It's more than another headline. It's a catalyst, one we've seen spark community mobilization to unprecedented levels." Reverend Thomas nodded, his hands clasped together in fervent agreement. "Andrew here plans to lend his expertise, guiding us through this legal terrain where change often finds itself mired," Colton elaborated, his words weaving together a plan, each point a thread in their newly formed alliance. Given my experience, I can offer both a legal strategy and my firm's resources to ensure this momentum isn't stifled by entrenched systemic bias. Jamal felt a pulse of hope, tangible and near palpable, invigorating beyond the rhetoric that often fades in bureaucracy's shadows. Your involvement could make a pivotal difference, Andrew, he acknowledged, consciousness steeped within the opportunity now shadowing the limitations they all had quietly recognized. Colton nodded, sensing the shared resolve galvanizing their conversation. Together, our combined efforts will not only highlight flaws in the system, but demand solutions. These are hurdles we've encountered before and must dismantle persistently until fairness permeates every encounter. Lila, having joined the circle, observed the attorney with a practical curiosity reflected in her eyes. What's next, then, Andrew? Tactics and structure. How do we translate these gatherings, this unity, into long-lasting reform? Coltwin appreciated her directness, a spark of admiration in his response. It begins with narrative power. We harness the influence of stories, yours, Agent Carter's, and countless others, to ensure voices and experiences are recognized by those enacting policy, Reverend Thomas added, flowing seamlessly into the dialogue. And we support legislation that prioritizes restorative justice. Measures not just nodding politely toward change, but embedding it within each layer of legal and community interaction. The unity forming was something almost palpable, like a solid entity born out of the collective conscience, assembled before him. Jamal sensed this synthesis, the power incubated within shared intelligence, culminating now into a resounding symphony against injustice. Ultimately, Colton continued, his tone a crescendo of conviction, we need to ensure protection for those targeted by profiling. We intend to spotlight insidious practices, break them down within our judicial system's framework, and cleanse it. Jamal let these words settle into his consciousness, surrounding each thought with mighty resolve. I'm ready to help. Count me and my agency in as a steadfast ally. Colton's expression softened into a rare, genuine smile, the first layered with the promise that wrapped around progress like a second skin. Agent Carter, your involvement here is crucial. We're aspiring to set new precedents efficiently advancing dialogues into action, finally birthing recognition among policies too long unyielding. As their discussions concluded, the rhythmic pulse of the crowd continued around them. The tangible energy encompassed Jamal, a solid foundation upon which intentions would indeed become action. They were no longer passive hope, but purposeful design, intent on reimagining justice's thresholds together. Within this spontaneous symposium woven amid the vibrant congregation, Jamal felt the potential stretching between him, Colton, Layla, and Reverend Thomas, the threads that now intertwined harmoniously with communal resolve. The path ahead, though daunting, illuminated through Coalition's light, bathing them in clarity, each step weaving triumph from adversity's tapestry, interspersing society renewal with transformative allegiance to equality. As dusk descended, casting gentle shadows across the city, Jamal returned to his apartment, its quiet sanctuary offering brief respite from the intensity of the outside world. He stepped inside, the door closing softly behind him, and the muffled hum of the crowd outside faded, leaving a gentle stillness that embraced him. His gaze wandered over familiar trinkets and photographs, each anchoring memory and personal history. But tonight, his thoughts were consumed by the day's events, the ground they had covered, the alliances forged alongside allies both new and enduring. The sudden chime of his phone broke the tranquil silence, bringing him back to the present. It was a message from his younger sister Nina, prompting immediate relief and anticipation intertwined. Her words danced across the screen with an ease that only family could conjure. Proud of you, big brother. Watching it all unfold. Call when you can. He couldn't suppress the fond smile spreading across his face. Her message was more than words. It was a thread connecting the past to the currents carrying them forward. He perched on the edge of his couch, dialing her number, eager to bridge the physical distance between them. She answered almost immediately, her voice alive and vibrant. "Hey Jay, you've had quite the day, haven't you?" Jamal chuckled softly, the sound mingling with warmth. "That's putting it lightly. How are things back home?" Nina filled him in. Tales of everyday life back in their hometown flowing through the line. Familiar anecdotes woven with the comforting sameness they carried. Intrinsically tethered, her narratives enveloped him like a balm soothing the day's arduous events. But Nina's voice lowered slightly, tinged with sincerity that extended beyond the pleasantries. "You know, what you're doing out there, it matters so much, not just to you or those people in the videos, to everyone who's watched our family, waiting for moments of change." He absorbed her words, recognizing the validation resonating through her encouragement. "It feels big, Nina, bigger than me, and that's something I'm trying to grasp, even as everything keeps moving around me." "I see it," she assured him, her tone unwavering. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but you're setting something real in motion. Mom and Dad would be, no, they are, proud. They've always believed we could make a difference." The mention of their parents, who had passed some years back, imbued the conversation with a somber yet hopeful nostalgia. It was a reminder of their enduring legacy, a foundation laid brick by brick, voice by voice. "Thanks, Nina," he murmured sincerely, "for being there, reminding me where we came from and where we're heading." "It's my honor, Jamal. Plus, who knew my big brother would become a viral sensation?" she teased, laughter lifting through the line. They talked a while longer, sharing familial banter interspersed with meaningful deliberations. A seamless blend of affection and purpose that enriched Jamal's resolve. This familial touchpoint grounded him amidst swirling external narratives, fortifying his journey acting behind the scenes or on public stages. As they said their goodbyes, promising updates and continued support, Jamal felt the weight of solitude diminish. His sister's words lingered, buoying his spirit with their familial ties, reminding him constantly that he was never alone in this vast, arduous quest. A newfound urgency mingled with fatigue, an amalgamation of the moment's demands threading aspirations within reality. He knew too well the path he and those beside him carved out required unwavering dedication, treading through unyielding landscapes, bereft of easy resolutions. Reflecting on his family's past struggles and the road he now traveled, Jamal moved to the window. Outside, the city pulsed silently, its character etched into shadows illuminated by the glow of streetlights. As he stared into the night, he felt renewed clarity of purpose threading through him. The support of his sister, his history, and the community that had rallied around him, weaving together all elements indispensable to their shared dedication toward justice and equality. In silence, Jamal whispered a resolve, both destining and grounded, intertwined with silent promises he'd watched manifest in the countless lives converging alongside his own. The digital world might buzz fervently outside his sanctuary, but inside, peace settled, a calm before endeavor's resurgence into the morrow that awaited. He closed his eyes, resting in that quiet certainty, renewed by family's closeness and shared dedication, intimately tethered to perpetual change. The chill of the morning air was tempered by the golden hues of sunlight spilling across the city's skyline, heralding a new day that promised both challenges and opportunities. Jamal was seated at his desk, papers strewn like battlefield maps, each document encapsulating strategies and stories waiting to be told in an arena of justice. The urgency of the media storm and community momentum wasn't the only thing propelling this day forward. Today also brought a fresh element of legality. As Jamal was to meet with the legal team Andrew Colton had swiftly pulled together. Lawyers who specialized in civil rights, seasoned investigators, and strategy consultants, all poised to channel the momentum into actionable reform. Jamal arrived at the appointed office, where sunlight danced through glass walls and polished floors, mirrored a scene poised on the brink of transformation. It was a contemporary fortress of law, embodying tradition's rigidity, tempered by modern sensibilities. Inside the sleek conference room, a palpable energy filled the air. Andrew Colton stood at the helm, backed by colleagues who projected assurance and capability. Their collective gaze shifted towards Jamal, a pivotal figure yet again within this legal choreography, intending precision amidst imperfection. "Agent Carter, welcome," Colton greeted, his voice imbued with the warm professionalism Jamal had come to recognize. "We've drafted preliminary objectives for procedural change, identifying key stakeholders imperative to advancing this initiative." Jamal nodded, feeling the collaborative spirit of the ensemble. Their agenda was dense with purpose: policy reviews, proposed legislative changes, and initiatives for community-engaged policing practices that would embed change deep into institutional frameworks. He scanned the room, meeting eyes filled with determination. Helen Marks, an astute litigator known for her fiery advocacy, leaned forward with purposeful intent. "We'll start by reviewing incidents similar to yours, exploring not just how to prevent recurrence, but how to foster accountability within law enforcement agencies nationwide." Her emphasis signified both opportunity and requisite vigilance. The plan unraveled methodically, every clause, each paragraph, a thread in the fabric they intended to weave anew, inspired by Jamal's experience but crafted for everyone traversing paths shadowed by systemic prejudice. Dominic Shaw, a key strategist renowned for his tenacity against bureaucratic inertia, spoke next. "Public sentiment is on our side, but we need precise language formulated for legislative proposals. Our narratives must resonate with truth and urgency, pressing lawmakers to act beyond rhetoric." Jamal appreciated the boldness interspersed within Shaw's words, a fusion of realism and aspiration underscored by the inclusive tapestry being crafted with each moment they dedicated. Colton paced slowly as he elaborated. "Visibility will be crucial in maintaining public pressure. We'll strategically leverage social media campaigns and traditional media outlets to broaden our reach without sacrificing message clarity. Each element of this meticulous choreography required perfect alignment, from the impassioned testimonies of those affected by bias to the intellectual rigor demanded by litigators guiding this cause through the challenging terrain of reform. Even with all this in motion, momentum alone isn't an assurance, Colton warned, his gaze direct, never wavering. "This undertaking, Agent Carter, it's not just about legal reforms. We're instigating a cultural shift, dismantling inherited biases and prejudices at their core." Jamal absorbed these words, registering their gravity alongside the hope simmering beneath. "I understand, Andrew. It's about redefining the principles behind each protocol, ensuring that integrity isn't just an aspiration, but a practice ingrained within." Their discussion progressed, crafting a blueprint intimately informed by conviction, courage, and a collective ambition insistent on reconciling justice's promise with its reality. They exchanged ideas and strategies, weaving intricate paths through bureaucracy's labyrinth while being acutely aware of the narratives resting upon their shoulders. As the meeting wended down, resolve crystallized further within each participant, mirrored in the dedication of the faces surrounding him. This gathering of expertise, passion, and determination embodied an unwavering pledge to ensuring justice resonated beyond words, breathing life into action. Leaving the office, the city unfurled before Jamal as an expanse canvassed by possibilities refusing silences premature in their emergence. Around him, the world churned, each step echoing the footsteps of those aligning in service to reformation's cause, advancing twilight's thread into daylight's mosaic of resolute justice fortified. His phone buzzed with renewed notifications as he navigated the streets, transporting him back into the digital conversation weaving timelines with advocacy. As he traversed both physical and figurative landscapes, Jamal felt the power of the collective momentum he'd helped galvanize, a compendium of voices rising into harmony, bearing the promise of a system transformed, seemingly within grasp's imminent reach. Jamal found himself engulfed by the thrumming current of the city as he stepped into the courthouse. Each step echoed with intention, reverberating the determination that trailed him like an invisible entourage. He navigated the bustling corridors, places where whispered conversations held the weight of lives yet to be unraveled, each conversation a page in the ledger of justice. Inside, the courtroom was hushed, the air dense with anticipation, infused with the warmth of sunlight filtered through tall windows. The beams danced across the polished wood, a silent participant in the unfolding drama. Jamal took his seat at the front, flanked by his legal team, a varied assembly rooted in diverse expertise, each contributor a vital thread in the intricate tapestry of justice they sought to weave. Proceedings began with a formality so practiced it seemed choreographed, yet beneath the surface, tensions simmered. The magistrate, a poised figure with eyes sharp from years of discerning truth, surveyed the courtroom with an expression that promised impartiality, yet demanded respect. The district attorney rose, addressing the court with calculated precision, his tone steady as he laid the groundwork for the day's developments. Today we discuss not only the events that transpired on that fateful night concerning Agent Carter, but also touch on the broader implications regarding societal biases manifested within our law enforcement, Jamal observed quietly, acutely aware of the collective breath held by the courtroom. This wasn't a trial as much as a public reckoning, an opportunity for transparency and accountability to be ushered forth into the light, challenging shadows clinging stubbornly to systemic flaws. The video from that night was displayed, the silent footage louder than spoken testimony. It played like a heartbeat, solemn and undeniable, reverberating the wrongful assumptions and the implicit biases that had driven them. Jamal watched his own image, fists clenched at his sides, standing calm yet defiant against an unjust accusation. His attorney, Helen Marks, took the floor next, her presence commanding a certain reverence. Agent Carter's story is not an anomaly, but a pattern crystallized within the constraints of our current practices, she asserted, interweaving history with present dynamics. The responsibility lies not merely in identifying these encounters, but ensuring they cease to happen at all. Her words resonated, a call to introspection and reform, echoing among those present like a bell tolling for change. It was time for the officers involved to provide their accounts, their roles becoming living conduits between past actions and potential resolutions. Officer Dennis approached the stand, his demeanor shorn of the authority he previously wielded, now tinged with a humility learned through recent revelations. His voice, though firm, carried the weight of acceptance. There were assumptions made. Assumptions that relied on visual cues rather than objective insights, he admitted, eyes trained on a point beyond the courtroom, as if their truth lay out of reach, yet eyes in the courtroom met his with varied degrees of understanding and judgment. Jamal sensed both a struggle for reconciliation and a desire for truth, cascading through those watching, an acknowledgement deeply personal yet shared. Next, Officer Randall's youth stood in stark contrast to the gravitas of the moment. His face was earnest, his resolve fortified by the clarity that comes with seeing the world unadorned. I realize now how complicit silence can be and how it contributed to this narrative, he said, voice steady yet revealing edges of vulnerability. Moving forward, it's about understanding and changing our perceptions, being proactive in justice, not just reactive. Jamal felt a shift, a minute yet significant pivot as their testimonies nudged the atmosphere, guiding words into potential action, commitments intrinsically fortified by recognition of their shared humanity. Helen closed with a poignant reflection, her gaze embracing the room with conviction. Change is not a specter hovering unseen. It is tangible and requires participation from all facets involved. It demands solidarity and active engagement, echoing through each interaction governed by this courtroom. The court adjourned, leaving lingering conversations suspended in mid-air, mingling with the static electricity of thoughts unspoken, yet vivid in their intent. Jamal lingered, absorbing the blended energies, parts weighted by accountability, hope, and renewal. The room buzzed with murmured exchanges, a conciliatory undertone threading through whispered insights. Each discussion carried the cadence of committed dialogue, bridging previously unspoken divides. Emerging back into the city's embrace, Jamal was greeted with the evening's cool embrace. Above him, the sky unfurled in twilight's tapestry, a horizon brushed by tentative stars, hinting at dawn's promise. The courthouse steps stretched before him, symbolic of the journeys taken and those yet to chart. He descended with measured strides, footsteps guided by personal truths entwined with public expectation, a quiet resolve threading through the ambiance of evolving advocacy. What remained, he understood, were actions yet to translate dialogues into reality, synonyms for enduring change, articulating freedom's irreproachable narrative, borne ahead by collective awakenings, pressing momentum inexorably toward definitive justice. The courtroom buzz lingered in Jamal's mind as he stepped into the brisk evening air, the chill biting softly against the warmth still flaring from the day's revelations. He couldn't deny the emotional magnitude of the proceedings, the weight of storytelling intertwined with evidentiary truth, a symphony to alter the arc of justice toward legitimacy. As Jamal made his way down the courthouse steps, the world felt both expansive and intimate, a shifting landscape of potential where individual pathways met the broader narrative of systemic change. The sides of the streets were lined with a tapestry of supporters, their presence forming a barricade of solidarity. Signs that championed reform, resilience, and renaissance swayed gently in the breeze, carried by determined hands and impassioned voices. He noticed Laila standing at the forefront, her expression a blend of hope and resolve. She caught his eye and waved him over, her presence tethering him to the profound unity forged in recent days. "Jamal," she called, the word carrying through the evening air, interlaced with both exhaustion and elation. Jamal crossed to her, greeted by cheers from those who had followed his story, who had borne witness to the day's proceedings and carried his narrative alongside their own. As an embodiment of their collective struggle, his success was their success, each victory shared and celebrated. "How you holding up?" Layla asked, her voice laced with genuine concern as they settled into a quieter alcove, the city folding around them in the twilight glow. "I'm tired," Jamal admitted, laughter tinging his voice with honesty. "But hopeful. Today felt monumental, like we're breathing life into change, instead of just talking about it." Layla nodded, understanding evident in her eyes. What happened in there resonated with so many watching outside, so many hoping to reshape the world they navigate every day. Their conversation was briefly interrupted as Reverend Thomas approached, his countenance suffused with pride and determination. "Your testimony today, Jamal, and theirs," he paused, acknowledging the officer's testimonies, "brought out the essence of reconciliation and the real work involved in mending." Jamal clasped the Reverend's hand, feeling the camaraderie run deep. "Thank you for guiding us, for framing this as a journey not to be taken alone." The Reverend chuckled softly, a sound layered with years of shared wisdom. "Each step we take toward justice turns history's whispers into a chorus sung by many. Today was an overture, a beginning." The conversation drifted through moments of laughter, introspective pauses, and strategic planning for future gatherings aimed at sustaining the momentum gained. Each story shared, each promise made, added dimension and texture to the perception of their shared journey. Surrounding them, clusters of invincible unity formed as small groups continued to gather, actions that promised to carry the vigor spawned when stories transcended solitary action, transforming into a shared quest, adorned with complexity but coursing with purpose. In this assembly, conversations sparked, fueled by the determination to trek paths less traveled. Young and old, seasoned activists and those newly awakened, each found camaraderie within the vigil, bound by an unwavering desire for genuine transformation. A young activist holding a camera, a tool he wielded with skill, moved closer, capturing moments unseen and stories yet to be told. His lens introduced a living archive, documenting the intricate dance of advocacy unfolding before their eyes. "It's these perspectives that matter," the young man murmured, his lens focused on Jamal, capturing not just his image but the narrative surging beneath. "People will see this and know it's possible, to be seen, heard, and supported." Jamal nodded, the artist's conviction feeding his own resolve. "Each story holds seeds of change. We're amplifying voices perennially unheard, creating an echo that transcends barriers others dared not challenge." As they broke apart, each returning to the evolving tapestry of voices and aspirations, Jamal felt a kinship not only to the immediate energy thrumming through the evening, but to a larger picture, a mosaic of stories now evolving beyond their inception, brimming with intention, harnessed by all involved. The sunset cast long shadows, tracing patterns across the faces and lives, interwoven like strands of woven narratives. The city, alive with its complex symphony, offered solace in the whispered promises of dreams, not solely deferred, but recognized in their time. Each conversation, each step, wove into the night an indelible path guiding tomorrow's light toward a more equitable horizon. As Jamal made his way home, the city's pulse continued its steadfast rhythm, a testament to the change they had ignited together. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one inscribed by the diligent and the defiant. Voices elevated into a resolute crescendo against the stormy tempests of inequality. The amber glow of the streetlights washed over Jamal's face as he approached his apartment, the city murmuring its secrets beneath the blanket of night. Closing the door behind him, he leaned against it for a moment, the day's events flashing through his mind like a montage, rich with emotion and clarity. He removed his jacket and placed it over the back of a chair, the weight of it a reminder of the mantle he bore for himself and those he represented. The apartment was a sanctuary now, a place where the echoes of public scrutiny softened into introspective quiet. Jamal moved to the window, gazing out at the city's vast expanse. Every light, every visible car weaving through the roads, carried with it people whose lives were touched by the systemic structures he and his allies had begun to dismantle. The work was personal, intricately entwined with his identity and lived experience. On the kitchen counter, a cluster of envelopes awaited his attention. One caught his eye. A pale, professional-looking letter that bore the insignia of the precinct he now was so intimately involved with. It was a final report from the recent inquiry into the officer's past misconducts, an investigation that had begun just as scrutiny turned intensely inward. The weight of it settled in his hand as he opened the envelope, eyes scanning the crisp paper, absorbing revelations that unfolded within its lines. As he read, the documented evidence unveiled not just errors from that night, but a broader, repetitive pattern of racial misconduct that had remained buried beneath years of silence. The report detailed multiple incidences similar to his experience, tucked away in formal diction, yet raw in their explicit implications. His heart sank as names, dates, and poignant details painted a picture of systemic neglect that should never have been allowed to persist. The misuse of authority, the unchecked prejudices, it was all laid bare, stained across official records. Jamal's phone buzzed with a notification, breaking his concentration. It was a message from Andrew Colton, succinctly summarizing the initial measures being taken. The officers involved were suspended, pending further disciplinary action, with hearings scheduled to determine the scope of changes required within the precinct's operations. "Jamal, this is the start of something only we can sustain," Colton had written. "Stay strong. The wheel of justice turns. These are the first rotations." Sitting at his table, Jamal absorbed the communication, the mixture of vindication and sorrow coursing through his veins. He understood the narrative seen by the world had only just begun, its roots unearthed, crying out for fundamental reform. His mind drifted to thoughts of change, real change, birthed not from accusations alone, but from the firm foundation of transparency and reflection, now laid bare before an audience unwilling to resonate with silences spun of duplicity. Jamal picked up the phone, dialing an internal number. He needed another perspective, another piece to this evolving puzzle. The line rang twice before Maya answered on the other end. Her voice was tinged with concern, the warmth of companionship etched into every syllable. "Hey, Jamal, what's up?" she asked, sensing the gravity behind his call, even through miles of circuitry and silence. "I have the report here," he replied, holding the document with both certainty and gravitas. "It's damning, a vivid reminder of the work lying ahead." There was a pause as Maya processed his words. "And do we have the resilience to see this through?" she whispered, her question a rallying cry rather than doubt's ghost. Jamal's resolve crystallized. "We don't have a choice, Maya. We must confront these truths and weave them into the reform we've envisioned. It's beyond the precinct. It's about ensuring others don't face similar walls," she exhaled, the impact of hopeful solidarity expressed through a subtle breath. "Then we proceed, Jamal. One block at a time, yes?" A semblance of reprieve accompanied their shared understanding. "One block at a time," he confirmed, settling the tension within. Resolute in the crusade, now undeniably their shared path. As the call ended, Jamal returned to the window, the hushed cityscape reflecting quiet power, a juxtaposition of hope and history intertwining to inspire long-awaited action. It was a tapestry of lives, love, and landscapes yearning for new verse. In that moment, he knew the personal sacrifices would be measured not in fleeting applause, but in the everyday transformations crafted for those whose lives would carve tomorrow's landscape. The future they aspired to was more tangible than ever, waiting just beyond the horizon. Resolved and focused, Jamal turned away from the window and prepared for the next steps in their unfolding saga. The narrative might have roots in past wrongs, but it blossomed across the present, each revelation a catalyst turning darkness into light as they pressed toward an unwavering daybreak. Morning sunlight streamed through Jamal's window, bathing the room in a warm golden hue as he gathered his things for the day ahead. Today wasn't just any other day, it was the culmination of months of advocacy and tense anticipation. The courtroom proceedings were expected to yield a pivotal decision that could significantly shape the trajectory of their push for reform. He left his apartment, the door clicking shut behind him with finality, marking the threshold between personal contemplation and public engagement. The crisp morning air filled his lungs, invigorating his spirit for the battle that lay ahead. As he approached the courthouse, Jamal's phone buzzed with messages of encouragement from colleagues, allies, and supporters who had stood by him through thick and thin. Each word of encouragement was a balm, reminding him of the collective strength fueling their cause. The courthouse steps were teeming with people, both friends and strangers, gathered in anticipation, their presence a silent yet powerful show of solidarity. Layla was among them, her steadfast support throughout the ordeal casting a net of reassurance over his resolve. "Hey," she greeted with a smile, her eyes reflecting the burden and hope they carried together. "This is it, Jamal. Whatever happens today, know that you've ignited something incredible." Jamal nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle into his chest. "It's everyone, Layla. I'm just one piece in this puzzle." The air vibrated with tension, a symphony of whispered conversations harmonizing with the rhythmic beat of their collective anticipation. Reverend Thomas raised his hands, quieting the crowd with a single motion. "Today we bear witness to a moment of potential transformation. Let us carry the torch of hope, no matter the outcome." Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was charged with expectation. The courtroom filled with observers, legal teams, and those invested in the verdict, each seated on opposing sides of an ideological divide. It was both solemn and reverberant, with the stakes at hand, a defining moment poised to redefine their journey toward justice. As proceedings began, the judge outlined the day's agenda, their voice measured, seeking equilibrium between the scales of impartial justice and the tremors of righteous advocacy coursing underneath. Helen Marks, stalwart in her representation, moved to address the court. Her words were meticulously crafted, a tapestry of fact and emotion, threading together the narrative of prejudice, systemic oversight, and the call for accountability. "This case is more than a singular event," she proclaimed. "It's an opportunity to redefine the principles guiding those entrusted with safeguarding our communities." Her articulation held sway, drawing the attention and introspection of all present. Jamal observed the faces around him, noting the spectrum of expression. Some hardened by years of entrenched injustice, others softened, perhaps reconsidering their role within unyielding systems. The district attorney presented their defense, acknowledging missteps while urging for systemic reevaluation, a calibrated response to shifting public sentiment. Their tone sought nuance, avoiding absolutions, yet mired in practical realities. As testimony and evidence were revisited, a rhythmic pattern emerged, a dance between acceptance and change, resignation and resolve. The courtroom absorbed the tension, stifling it within its stately confines as each clock tick echoed judgments discordant and inevitable. Jamal's heart quickened, not just from the outcome's uncertainty, but from the collective epiphany present in this crucible of scrutiny. At last, the judge, their expression as impassive as judicial decorum required, delivered the ruling. The decision suspended the officers, mandating comprehensive retraining programs and systemic auditing for the entire force, a rebuke to inaction, a talisman of forthcoming reform. A ripple of reactions coursed through the courtroom. Satisfaction, disappointment, and hope, all colliding in a profound crescendo that caught Jamal in its wake. It was a partial victory, one that affirmed their struggle, but reminded him of the journey still at hand. Outside, the crowd greeted him with applause and cheers, a spontaneous crescendo harmonizing with relief, validation, and the undiminished resolve to carry forward. "There's more to do," Jamal said to Layla, his words both a declaration and a reminder as they stood side by side, enveloped by their community's embrace. "But it's a step in the right direction." Layla nodded, watching the faces of those around them, both strangers and allies. "We'll keep pushing, Jamal. We've come too far to turn back now." Reverend Thomas joined them, his presence a steady lighthouse in the storm of vicissitudes. "Today, my friends, we plant seeds in fertile soil," he said with a twinkle of hope underscoring wisdom worn proudly with age. As the day unfolded, their journey was marked not by closure but by rebirth. Each step taken grounded them within a legacy fashioned not just by victories, but by the enduring humanity intertwining every effort. Jamal's resolve crystallized, a firmament interwoven with every voice, echoing now as a tapestry stitched from whispers of the heart. The path ahead was long, lined with challenges anew, yet illuminated by the light of shared purpose, guiding them toward justice's horizon, a horizon not merely glimpsed, but claimed in earnest by unity that dared to dream and actualize what once felt unattainable. In the aftermath of the courthouse decision, the precinct was a hive of activity. Officers moved with renewed energy, yet their movements carried the weight of introspection and change. The ruling that had sent ripples through the legal community now demanded action within the police force itself, nudging it toward a future where justice and accountability reigned supreme. Jamal walked through the precinct's threshold, the door closing behind him with a definitive click that echoed the shift in the air. His presence, once a catalyst for tension, now symbolized the ongoing metamorphosis they were navigating together. The familiar faces of colleagues met his gaze with a mixture of respect and burgeoning solidarity, an acknowledgement of shared responsibility to reshape their mission. The precinct's atmosphere was charged, a tapestry of old habits frayed, and seamsters busily stitching new threads of inclusion and fairness. Jamal noted the tangible change in posture, the whisperings of past complacencies, giving way to the pragmatic acknowledgement of necessary reform. Chief Inspector Lopez gathered the team that morning, her sharp features softened by the solemn challenges ahead. Her voice cut through the hum of the morning brief, steady and deliberate. We stand at a crossroads. The choices we make will determine not just the fate of our department, but the trust of the people we serve. Jamal stood among officers, civilians, and key stakeholders present for the meeting. Their attentiveness was a silent vow, a readiness to overhaul and embrace the newfound potential illuminated by recent events. As we initiate comprehensive training programs, Lopez continued, we're restructuring not just our protocols, but our perceptions. This precinct is going to lead in accountability and community engagement. The nods around the room were not merely perfunctory. They were agreements born from experience, convictions reverberating with lessons learned. The district had reached a consensus, nurtured by deliberate action rather than awkward accommodations festering beneath denial. There was a palpable energy, a sense of collective ownership that infused the atmosphere with hope and determination. What had once been a space dominated by hierarchy and protocol was transforming into a forum for dialogue and innovation. Jamal listened intently as Little Harmon, heading the newly formed Engagement Task Force, outlined their objectives. We're partnering with local organizations to build bridges, fostering relationships with residents that will fortify trust and dissolve barriers. Beside him, Andrew Colton observed with a critical eye, his presence an emblem of external advocacy now weaving into the internal fabric, an alliance strengthening connections and rooting reinforcement in solidarity. The room broke into smaller groups, each tasked with specific initiatives. Jamal found himself assigned to the community relations team, a collaboration underscored by diverse perspectives and a shared commitment to justice. Maya, joining Jamal in this endeavor, mirrored his resolve. This is where change truly begins, Jamal, not just in policies, but hearts and minds. Jamal nodded, reflecting Maya's optimism and determination. We're setting precedents. This isn't just about reactionary measures. It's about evolving our shared experiences. Conversations catalyzed action, with team members brainstorming, sharing ideas, and mapping strategies to embed inclusivity deep within the precinct's operations. Each dialogue echoed with sincerity, fueled by the zeal to transform precarious dynamics into pillars of trust. As the day wore on, the precinct buzzed with the hum of transformation. Gone were the hushed conversations shrouded in secrecy. In their place sat open discussions, confronting bias and unraveling issues with clarity, each inhabiting the collective narrative crowning reform. Amidst it all, Jamal felt a renewed sense of purpose and optimism for the future of their community. What began as a single incident had evolved into a movement, one catalyzed by shared voices, multinational harmony, and the courage to require more from themselves and each other. The precinct was more than an institution now. It was a vessel, bearing the hope of a community refusing stagnation. It embraced reconciliation, channeling energy once reserved for shadows into illuminating footsteps, poised toward substantive equality. As twilight descended once more, ceding day to night's embrace, Jamal paused at the precinct's threshold. He turned to Maya and the adjusting officers, all reflecting on the path shaped today and eagerly anticipating tomorrow's endeavors. Let's continue to lead by example, Jamal encouraged, his voice a bridge linking challenge to opportunity, steeped with faith in the journey unspooling before them. This is where we begin the next chapter, together. The night outside was calm, yet alive with shimmering possibilities. The precinct stood as a testament to progress, fueled by unity and resolve, a beacon of transformation, anchored in principles refined beyond rigid structures, to encompass the heart's enduring pursuit of justice. The ink of the day's successes and challenges still fresh in his mind, Jamal returned home, a quiet haven nestled within the throbbing pulse of the city. The precinct's corridors of transformation still echoed in his thoughts, their vibrations resonating with the day's actions and words. He dropped his keys onto the table with a clatter, a small storm of familiar chaos descending into stillness. He moved through his apartment, the subtle disarray hinting at a life in constant motion, a life now more intertwined with both the private and public journeys to justice. He paused by a bookshelf, trailing fingers across the spines of books that held the philosophies and narratives guiding him, tales of resistance, resilience, and reform, intricately binding theory to practice. Slipping into a seat by the window, he allowed himself to gaze out at the cityscape, now cloaked in a tapestry of twinkling lights. The horizon stretched endlessly, a reminder of the countless lives intricately linked in the ongoing pursuit of equality. His thoughts drifted through the day's interactions, each a stepping stone across the river of inequity they aimed to traverse. The quiet broke with the buzz of a message on his phone, its chime carrying with it the familiar connection of family, a tether to roots that grounded him in times of upheaval. It was Nina, her presence still a tether in the swirl of the evening. Her words appeared in flashes on screen. "Thinking of you. Did you know your stories caught fire? It's out there, Jay, really making an impact." Jamal's lips curved in a smile of gratitude, feeling her proximity keenly despite the miles between them. He replied, fingers dancing over the keys, "You always remind me where I started, Nina, and where we'll finish. This is our story too." Her response arrived with the same immediacy. "Together. Always. Keep your light shining." Her encouragement, though brief, was an infusion of warmth and strength, an embodiment of shared resilience threading through their lineage. She was a potent reminder that change was as personal as it was political, each story feeding the collective momentum of progress. Feeling refreshed, Jamal rose, invigorated by connection and inspired to reflect further on the path they'd begun to forge. He drew nearer to the easel that stood, slightly dusted, in the corner of his living room, a creative endeavor he'd often turned to when words failed. His hands knew the feel of brush and canvas like they knew the contours of the stories he fought so passionately for. He dipped a brush into cool shades of blue, splashes of hope spreading across the canvas with a fluidity that mirrored the shifting landscapes of justice. Each stroke resonated with deliberate intention, blending colors that bridged despair and possibility into a new narrative unfolding beyond rigid constraints. As paint met canvas, Jamal found clarity amidst the uncertainty. He reflected on the precursors to his journey, his parents' sacrifices, the sacrifices of those whose voices had amplified change before him. Their legacy was encoded in every decision, each action inspired by the continuity of their vision for an equitable world. In this meditative space, Jamal considered the lessons learned, not just about systemic reform, but about his own resilience and capacity for growth. This facilitating narrative interwove with those around him, a patchwork quilt of voices harmonizing from past to present, from isolation to unity. Time stretched, folded in the creative process, until the colors quieted on the canvas. Pulling away, Jamal surveyed his work, noting how light and shadow mingled in a dance of transformation, reminiscent of the changes he witnessed daily. He stood back, contemplating the stories that continued to drive him, the stories of countless individuals whose lives converged in this expansive chapter, entwined with expectations unshaken by adversity's stubborn persistence. He was more than a catalyst. He was a custodian, a bearer of narratives, poised toward progression. With newfound resolve, Jamal turned from the canvas, the transition seamless from reflection to action, past to present. He embraced the hours yet to unfold, marked by knowledge shared and progress carved into facets of justice widened for those yet to come. Outside, the city pulsed softly beneath the cloak of evening, held sacred within the glow of more than streetlights. Within this rhythm, Jamal reassured himself of one perpetual truth. In unity dwells humanity's promise, allowing even the smallest lights to converge into constellations, reclaiming night's expanse, demonstrating the beauty of transformative journeys shared, now and always. And so, Guided by these convictions and a vision not merely hoped for but actively crafted, Jamal stepped into tomorrow, a fresh canvas, inspiring, waiting to be realized. The dawn painted the city in soft hues of gold as Jamal prepared to meet with community leaders. Today's agenda was crucial, fostering healing and building partnerships with local organizations that traversed cultural divides. These alliances were the bedrock upon which trust would be rebuilt, a tapestry woven from the threads of shared experiences and common goals. Jamal felt the rhythmic heartbeat of the city beneath his feet as he walked to the community center, its welcoming facade a beacon of hope nestled among bustling streets. The center brimmed with energy, vibrant murals adorning its walls, telling stories of struggle, resilience, and redemption through art that spoke to the heart and soul. Inside, the hall buzzed with anticipation. People gathered in clusters, conversations ebbing and flowing like a tide of renewed commitment to their shared vision. Faces familiar and new turned as Jamal entered, and a warmth kindled within him, fueled by their collective spirit. Layla and Reverend Thomas were already engaging with attendees, their presence embodying the longevity and breadth of their shared cause. They nodded to Jamal as he approached, drawing him into their orbit of optimism and resolve. "Today marks a new chapter, Jamal," Layla said, her voice bright yet grounded. "We're sowing seeds, cultivating a field of understanding and action." Reverend Thomas echoed her sentiment, his age-weathered hands gesturing expansively. "This is where community blossoms, embracing each other's narratives to nourish the future." A quiet settled over the gathering as Jamal stepped forward, greeting the assembly with gratitude and purpose. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice reverberating through the room. "Your presence today isn't just a symbol, it's a statement. We're rewriting this narrative together." The attendees listened intently, eyes searching for and finding hope mirrored within each other. Their collective anticipation promised transformation woven through dialogue soon to be shared, voices now prepared to bear witness and herald change. Maya, standing amidst fellow community advocates, addressed the crowd, articulating the day's vision. "We're here to ignite conversations that bridge old divides. Today, we share our truths and forge ahead on paths lit by mutual respect and empathy." Groups organize themselves into circles, diverse in age, background, and experience. Each cluster encapsulated a microcosm of the broader community, a reflection of life in all its multifaceted complexity. Jamal joined one such circle, settling among faces marked by determination and the wisdom gained from life's varied challenges. A young mother spoke first, her voice tinged with emotion as she shared her hopes for her children, hopes steeped in safety and opportunity. Nearby, an elder statesman reflected on past struggles, his tone earnest and seasoned. "I've seen movements come and go, but this, what we're building here today, through our alliances across lines drawn by others, it has the seeds of something lasting." As each person shared their stories, both triumphant and raw, it became evident that these narratives could not be relegated to forgotten history. Instead, they constructed a patchwork of interconnected fates, defiantly engraved upon the collective consciousness of all gathered. The room buzzed with understanding. The empathy exchanged fueled the invigorating conversation. Trust was not just spoken of, it was manifested, woven into the fibers that fortified the bridges they all aspired to build. By midday, the hall was alive with the sounds of collaboration, ideas taking shape under gentle guidance and communal support. Jamal circulated through the discussions, leveraging collective potential, evident in each voice that rose to meet the aspirations born of shared endeavor. Reverend Thomas managed the closing assembly, nurturing the zeal and newly minted partnerships with a blend of wisdom and encouragement. "We've laid foundations today that embody hope and resolution," he declared, his gaze encompassing the devoted faces arrayed before him. "May this be just one step in the journey, a journey heartened by earnest faith in tomorrow." As they left the center, the participants carried not only newfound insights, but the reaffirming glow of possibility, a possibility not limited to the confines of their morning's discourse, but extending into every corner of their lives. Jamal walked away with a renewed sense of purpose, holding on to the bonds woven today, and the power harnessed from voices lifted in unity and determination. He knew the strength in these alliances was enduring, fortified by trust, seasoned by adversity, proven steadfast under scrutiny. Outside, the sun shone brighter, casting hopeful illumination over the paths taken and those yet to be ventured. Each step felt like poetry in motion, a symphony of individual and collective rhythms aligned with the arc of justice bending, at times slowly but inevitably, toward equity and understanding. With this tapestry of humanity embracing him, Jamal knew they had taken another significant stride toward a future relentlessly pushing past the boundaries of yesterday's shortcomings. The energy from the community gathering lingered warmly in Jamal's mind as he made his way back home. As impactful as those face-to-face discussions had been, he knew that the court of public opinion demanded just as much attention online. In today's digital age, battles for justice were fought not only in courtrooms and community centers, but also across the sprawling terrain of social media and opinion outlets. Jamal sat at his desk, flipping open his laptop. The screen cast a cool blue glow in the dim light of his apartment, filling the room with an energy that matched his resolve. Notifications fluttered in at a steady pace, each one a signal of a world keenly interested and invested in the movement catalyzed by his ordeal. His social media feed teemed with discussion, hashtags proliferating that shouted demands for justice and reform. Videos from the courtroom alternated with spirited debates, weaving a rich tapestry of commentary centering around systemic racism and law enforcement accountability. Jamal's story had become a catalyst for broader conversations, each post and tweet a pixel in the mosaic painting the current civil rights landscape. Voices were raised both in his defense and in critique, the continuum of discourse vital in its dynamism and democratic essence, even when discordant tones threatened to overshadow their unity. He crafted a post, carefully considering each word. His intent was to amplify, not detract, from the causes, the supporters, and the growing understanding taking shape in communities nationwide. Finally satisfied, he released his message to the world. Today, we witnessed what happens when forthright dialogue meets the pursuit of justice. Our journey isn't over. It's a challenge, a call to each of us to keep pushing for equality at every turn. This is a movement made of our voices, our actions. Together, let's continue this momentum. Justice for all. Community power. As the post went live, responses poured in, each one echoing diverse stories, shared experiences, and reinvigorating pledges for change. Jamal engaged with as many as he could, offering thanks, sharing insights, and reinforcing the unity that he deeply felt with a growing virtual community. Meanwhile, news outlets were abuzz, opinion pieces multiplying overnight, casting lights and shadows on every angle of his narrative. Some articles celebrated the movement, heralding it as a watershed moment in modern civil rights advocacy. Others remained skeptical, a necessity in their role of questioning institutions, highlighting the work yet undone. Journalists and columnists from renowned publications sought perspective and commentary, eager to contribute varied views to the public conversation. Jamal realized that navigating these dialogues required him to balance introspection with coherence, ensuring his narrative blended seamlessly with the broader tapestry of civil rights stories. He drafted several insightful responses to op-eds, collaborating with partners like Andrew Colton to ensure clarity and commitment were clearly woven into each line. Their strategic commentary provided thoughtful exploration of the crucial themes tying together cross-marketing empowerment and reform conviction. While scrolling through his messages, one email caught his eye. Its sender, a respected activist and writer, Shayna Tinsley, renowned for her incisive critique and unapologetic passion for human rights. Her email was a blend of encouragement and professional camaraderie. "Jamal," Shayna wrote, "your story has sparked significant reflection amongst policymakers and everyday people alike. Let's ensure this narrative remains vivid. Let me know if you're open to collaborating on an opinion piece highlighting the multifaceted journeys toward justice." Jamal replied quickly, buoyed by her outreach. This was not just an opportunity, but an affirmation of shared goals, igniting change beyond borders and disciplines. "Absolutely, Shauna. I'd be honored to work together on something that guides our cause with continued authenticity and impact." Time slipped by unnoticed as Jamal continued to engage with the chorus of digital voices. The hours of discourse, while demanding, were transformative. They fortified his resolve and breathed life into the campaigns seeking truth and integrity. By the end of the night, as the outside world quieted and the city's pulse slowed to a steady rhythm, Jamal closed his laptop, feeling the weight of today's narratives steady upon his shoulders. In engaging with the world, he'd woven yet another thread into the complex fabric of justice they were crafting collectively. Through this digital platform, ideas had danced, clashed, and harmonized with renewed vigor. It was a worldwide stage, one that demanded vigilance and honesty, a stage on which the collective efforts of countless individuals were performed, each note echoing into the vast expanse where real change awaited its audience. Jamal knew tomorrow would bring its challenges anew, yet surrounded by a network of allies, emboldened by a shared sense of purpose, he felt ready to continue shaping the future they all envisioned with relentless curiosity and hope. The city braced itself for another day under a gray, contemplative sky, as Jamal arrived at the precinct for what promised to be one of the most revealing days yet. Inside, a different kind of energy permeated the corridors, like the hush before a storm. The news of the recent ruling still lingered, each step taken echoing the fragility of newfound alliances, tested by the new reality of enforced introspection and honesty. Jamal entered the conference room where the officers involved in previous incidents now gathered, the aura palpable with tension punctuated by uncertainty. No longer simply a uniformed assembly, this was a battleground of conscience, with each participant carrying the silent weight of choices, now unfolding under scrutiny. Officer Dennis sat among them, his face marked by weary contemplation rather than defensive fortitude. The ruling hung heavily over him, both a reprimand and an opportunity for redemption, a path most authentic when stripped of pretenses, bridging moral and professional chasms. Next to him, Officer Randall's youth belied the maturity subtly crafted within recent months, a reflective gravity knitting his expression. His experiences had etched newfound depths within him, as trial by public and peer scrutiny had forged resilience, tempered with introspective insights. Detective Rosa, seated beside Jamal, presided over the session, her demeanor an equilibrium of authority and empathy. "Today we confront the truths we've examined, personally and institutionally, and see what arises from our reconciliation with them," she began, her voice steadying the collective pause. Discussions started haltingly, officers relaying past experiences and reflecting on ingrained biases now unveiled for collective examination, each revelation layered upon the previous one, constructing an upward spiral of understanding where silence had once reigned supreme. As the conversation gathered momentum, Dennis finally spoke, his words reflective yet laden with determination. "We're here because we've glimpsed what's long remained dormant in our minds, assumptions hardwired, needing conscious admission before they're dismantled," Randall added, his voice tinged with youthful fervor. "This isn't just about procedural change. This is about our mindset, inert actions turned active reflection, shifting from unquestioning habits to questioning everything." Their words hung in the air, each an acknowledgement of structured patterns absorbed unconsciously, patterns threading the fabric within themselves and their interactions, now reached for reconstruction. Jamal leaned forward, The room's expectancy aligned with clarity newly unfolding. "Understand, you're not alone in this transformation," he interjected, his words woven in support. "These aren't individual errors. They reflect broader systemic issues. That realization is monumental in moving toward equitable change." Detective Rosa seized the moment, guiding their discourse further. "Reflect not just on actions, but on how they impact the communities we're meant to protect. Each choice reverberates, influencing trust and safety, definitions broadened beyond present scope." The room thrummed with intensity, the contemplation veering away from guarded reticence to open admission, threading their lives with the broader mosaic encompassing tone, touch, and tacit responses, now articulated and laid bare. There was a shift, an almost tangible pulse within the room, as acknowledgement morphed quietly into accountability, eyes meeting across shared geographies of understanding, not yet perfected, but evolving through uncomforted honesty. Jamal sensed a pivotal cohesion. One by one, the officers committed to fostering transparency and inclusivity, their pledges earnest, sustained, and bound by fresh resolve to unlearn and relearn within this complex space of service. This nod to solidarity didn't promise immediate transformation. It promised intention, the intention to step beyond personal narratives and wear inclusive ideals visibly. A newfound anthem meant not for uniformity but unity, cultivated across common, corrective pursuits. As the meeting wrapped up, Jamal lingered in the room, his presence steady among colleagues, altered by realization and resolve. He conveyed confidence, encapsulated within their shared goal, grappling but grasping firmly toward justice's true north. As they disbanded, a quiet camaraderie lingered. A tableau echoed beyond the precinct's constrained borders, amidst the bounds of a cityscape swirling with challenges, yet embraced with opportunity anew. Moving through the precinct's doors, Jamal emerged into the daylight, the sky no longer overcast but promising, a reminder of the rebirth, reflective within and beyond, horizons awaiting the dawn, cradling perpetual dreams of possibility. The cracks in their brotherhood, these revelations, had not divided them. They redefined them, highlighting gaps now navigable through dialogue, fostering integrity woven into the fabric of an endeavor no longer seen as an escalation, but rather evolution toward a greater enduring unity of purpose. As the day unfolded into evening, Jamal stood at the heart of a gathering that had swelled to fill a spacious civic auditorium. The room, imbued with purpose and anticipation, was a kaleidoscope of humanity. Faces both new and familiar assembled under the banner of progress, their presence a testament to a movement that had transcended its origins to inspire a wider and more diverse audience. It was an event that marked not just a continuation but a defining milestone. A legacy piece, seamstress threads across the community's shared experience. The ceiling's vaulted architecture magnified every whisper, conversation converging into a formidable chorus. It was more than an assembly, it was a symposium, bound by a fierce determination to advance lasting change. Jamal found himself backstage, listening to the gentle hum of the crowd. He sensed the weight of this moment, knowing that today's dialogue wouldn't merely recap past victories, it would galvanize further commitment, imbuing intentions with clarity and shared vision. Andrew Colton approached, his demeanor a blend of reflective contemplation and focused resolve, embodying the essence of their shared journey toward justice. "Are you ready, Jamal? This is the turning point, the opportunity for our message to echo far and wide." Jamal nodded, the indefinable essence of so many souls woven into one shared voice, propelling him forward, a compendium of stories that had unfolded like constellations across the fabric of their collective endeavors. "Let's do this," Jamal replied, his heart steady, the weight of responsibility balanced by the unity cultivated through trust and resolute dialogue. Joined by fellow advocates including Maya, Layla, and Reverend Thomas, Jamal took the stage. The auditorium hushed, anticipation infusing the silence with electricity. The spotlight, warm and bright, singled him out among the crowd, a beacon illuminating today's narrative. Stepping forward, Jamal's gaze swept the faces arranged around him, a vibrant testament to identities transcending divisions once entrenched. His voice found a rhythmic cadence, grounding clarity with grace. "Thank you for being here," he began, words deliberate, bearing the weight of the mantle he wore. "Thank you for believing in the power of unity, for stepping beyond comfort's edge to confront hard truths head-on." Ripples of applause underscored his gratitude, the sound weaving through the crowd with resonance, indicative of a burgeoning shift from disparity to harmonized diversity. "What started as a personal trial," Jamal continued, "has ignited a movement that's more than the sum of its parts. We've grown beyond one courtroom, one precinct, into a collective drive for sustainable justice." Layla spoke next, her presence radiant with sincerity. "Every conversation, every meeting, we've built bridges forged within understanding and acknowledgement, and while the road ahead is arduous, it is paved with our shared commitment to equity for all." Reverend Thomas followed, his seasoned voice imbued with reverence. "We stand at this junction, the footprints of our ancestors etched beneath us, the unfolding history carved by our determination to create a future free from inherited shackles." The audience, moved by his words, erupted into applause, the energy lifting the room into a current of transformative belief, a river of hope beneath weightless burdens borne courageously from past days. As panel dialogue enlivened the stage, each speaker obtaining indulgence and delivering insights, the audience engaged fervently, its collective anticipation fabricated by vision and vested interest. Andrew Colton addressed both naysayers and believers alike, his voice cool yet influential. "This movement is not about division, it's about unifying intent into a powerful chorus that demands recognition and action. It signifies a pivot from inertia to progression, driven by hearts and informed by insight." With each assertion, interwoven stories resonated, echoes reluctant to silence before they were heard, shaping the enduring narrative, co-authored by long-neglected voices seeking permanence. The evening culminated in a Q&A session, attendees eager to express concerns, aspirations, and solidarity. Across the room, diverse perspectives intersected, forming an intricate lattice of shared engagement. The communal narrative buoyed and advanced with each encounter. As the event concluded, the auditorium was abuzz with conversation, words of encouragement, reflections on the movement, sparks of future collaborations ignited within impassioned exchanges. Jamal stepped down from the stage, enveloped by both relief and fulfillment, knowing this was just the beginning. The threads they had spun would continue to weave their tapestry long after this night faded into memory, a testament to what they had achieved and what they would continue to strive for together. Emerging outside, the cool night air wrapped around him peacefully. Above, the sky stretched as an expansive canvas of possibility, the stars a promise etched beyond reach, but illuminated by collective intent, a shared endeavor to craft realities once only dreamed. In the hush of the night, Jamal felt renewed, part of something far greater, yet integrally essential. Their story resounded in the fabric of lives touched across divides, laying eternal claim to a pursuit that continued unabated, seeded with promise, nourished by unity, liberated into tomorrow's dawn, ever shining. As the cacophony of the night's event faded, Jamal stepped into the familiar embrace of his apartment. The echoes of the evening lingered like a melodic refrain, the resonance of each impassioned speech and shared hope, a solemn symphony harmonizing the collective steps they had taken. The city outside settled into its nocturnal rhythm, the sounds of distant traffic and murmuring night winds crafting a gentle lullaby enveloping a day's work well done. Jamal sat at his desk, a place where ordinary elements transformed into instruments of change and reflection, an altar to both personal contemplation and public resolve. The clock ticked steadily, each marker a reminder of the relentless advance of time and the necessity to seize every moment in pursuit of equity. Jamal opened his notebook, pages filled with scribbles from ideas exchanged earlier, visions articulated and goals delineated. Tonight the pen flowed easily, capturing the essence of what had transpired, a momentous leap from inertia to momentum. From silence to a roaring sea of shared voices, his thoughts cascaded onto the page, framed by a newfound clarity born from the commingling of diverse narratives, all seeking justice. Each sentence crystallized his understanding that the struggle for change was a continuous arc, its momentum carried forward by each person who dared to step beyond the shadows of injustice to amplify light through unity and action. As the words settled, Jamal felt the weight of their progress, their praxis woven through courage, their resilience forged resilient in the crucible of collective experience. What began as a ripple had become a wave, hitting the shores of possibility with irreversible force. He closed the notebook, its pages now faithfully capturing a story yet unfinished, but ardently pursued. A new beginning stretched before him, shaded by possibility yet brightened by purpose, a luminous thread drawn from hope, interwoven with the tenacity of dreams once deferred, but now vigorously retained. In the cool stillness of the night, Jamal moved to the window, looking over the city that, despite its sleeping facade, thrummed with unseen life, intent on its evolutionary dance toward justice. The spectrum of lights twinkled with promises freshly etched into the fabric of reality, articulating a story reborn and expanding beyond yesteryear's constraint. He breathed deeply, allowing the moment to embed itself within him, a tangible reminder that these struggles, this striving, was the vital engine driving them all beyond barriers. Here lay the resolve that had fueled past endeavors, now tilled into fertile dreams for those yet to come. With this thought, a whispered wisdom passed his lips. We go farther, together. A testament to the bonds they had strengthened and the vital narrative that demanded their forward motion. Reflecting on the journey from past days to this very moment, Jamal smiled softly, acknowledging that their work was both a privilege and an obligation, as necessary as the air sustaining them all. Turning away from the window, Jamal allowed the quietude to cradle him, soothed by the city's enveloping calm. Tomorrow invited them to rise again with renewed determination, to continue undoing knots of iniquity, one thread at a time, weaving history's collective with care, compassion, and clarity. The night whispered its blessing through the gentle swaying of trees outside, an ode to voices unified, not yielding but forging forward with insistence. Leaving behind the day, a whispered promise bound his vision to their enduring endeavor, each movement and moment restoring and refining a world perpetually imagined better. As you, dear reader, step into the realm of your stories, consider this question: what changes do you envision, and which steps are within your power to ignite? If Jamal's journey speaks to you, spread his message and consider subscribing to the channel for more stories that empower and inspire. How will you be part of the change?